After finishing a diet, many people face the relapse, a loss of control, overeating, and gaining weight back. And this is not about willpower, this is about complex physiological and psychological mechanisms that come into play. My name is Olga Onoshenko, I'm a psychotherapist, nutritionist, and I've got a PhD from the University of Sheffield. And this is a channel that helps you improve your physical and mental health and lose weight as a pleasant side effect of that. So subscribe and let's go. Why do we relapse at all? Why do we binge? And there are as many reasons of that as there are people on earth who binge. This is highly individual because we all have different genetics, different neural pathways, different life experiences. So there is no universal recipe how not to binge after diet. But why are we more inclined to relapse, to binge after restrictions? Here there is one universal pattern, more or less. When we restrict food, when we restrict calories, and we spend a prolonged amount of time, weeks, months, in conditions of calorie deficit, and calorie deficit means we eat less than we burn. And this is what we need to lose weight. And if we spend enough time in this state, our nervous system perceives this as stress. And also our body tries to protect us from starvation. I don't talk here about starvation mode. There are a lot of questions to this term. I'm talking here about evolutionary mechanisms, because if we are in calorie deficit for a certain period of time, our hormones of hunger increase, our hormones of satiety decrease, we become more impulsive, we think more about food. Our brain gets into food-seeking mode, and this is natural, this is normal. So in such conditions, we just want food more, we're interested in food more, and we're more impulsive. It's harder to make rational decisions, it's harder to execute self-control. That's it. As simple as that. This is what dieting does to us. And this does not mean that we are doomed, that we cannot overcome, we cannot hack this evolutionary biological mechanism. But before talking about practical recommendations of how to hack this mechanism, let's talk about physiology, what you need to know once you have lost weight on a diet, maybe even a little bit of weight. You need to understand that your metabolism slows down. This is the first. Our basal metabolic rate, energy we burn when we are resting, goes down, because the lighter we are, the lower is our basal metabolism. This is first. Second, our non-exercise activity thermogenesis goes down when we lose weight. Our organism starts saving energy, making us more lethargic, less energized. We start working in a more energy-saving way. We will not stand up extra time to make ourselves a cup of tea. This is subconscious. We may not notice it. We may not notice any changes. But the amount of calories we burn to do our everyday tasks may increase, and in some people it increases a lot. How to address this? What to do? First, we need to increase our physical activity. This is first line intervention to help you maintain your new weight. Increase physical activity. Make yourself fall in love with exercise. Make yourself enjoy walking. If you've been doing 10,000 steps a day on diet, after dieting, make 12,000 steps a day. If you've been training three times per week, train 4 times per week after diet. This will protect you. Next, resistance train during diet and after diet. If you preserve muscle mass or build new muscle mass, this will help you to preserve your basal metabolic rate and even to increase non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Because when we have more muscles, when we're fitter, we are more energized in everyday life. I need to mention a fun fact that yes, muscle mass increases our metabolism, but not because muscles burn a lot of energy at rest. No, muscles do not burn a lot of energy at rest, but they help us to be more energized and burn more energy when we move. Next, what you need to know. After diet, you most probably will regain some weight. And this weight will be glycogen and water. Why? Because if we lose weight in conditions of high calorie deficit, energy deficit, or in conditions of low carb diet, we will deplete our glycogen. Glycogen is how we store carbs in order to use them later for energy. We store them where? In muscles and liver. In conditions of calorie deficit or low carb diet, we deplete a little bit of glycogen, and we may store from 300 to 800 grams of glycogen in our body. And every gram of glycogen needs 3 grams of water to be stored in. So easily our weight may fluctuate 1, 2, 3 kilograms. When glycogen is depleted, we're lighter. When we fill it up, we're heavier. And going off diet, coming back to a normal diet, will include increase of 1-2 kilograms of weight on scale. But this does not mean that we gained fat tissue. We just renewed our energy stores. This is not a problem. Be ready for it and do not get upset. Get upset only if you continue gaining weight beyond these 1-3 kilograms. And you also need to know that dieting phase is one thing, but you cannot be all your life in energy deficit and in dieting phase, right? You also need to learn to live in maintenance. So you need to learn to live normally without gaining weight, and this may require a lot of time. I'm not talking here about reverse dieting. No. Reverse dieting is made up in order to make money off people. You can come back to your normal maintenance calories straight away. You do not need to do it gradually. But if you've been gaining weight before your diet, there were some reasons for this. There were some reasons for overeating. And I'm saying overeating not to judge, but like there was something that made you overeat. Maybe it was an ultra-processed diet. Maybe it was emotional eating, using food as a coping mechanism, eating when you're not hungry. Even if your diet is healthy, you may still eat extra calories. You may still eat when you do not need energy. So you need to address that. Why you gained weight first thing, and then take this into consideration when you are coming back to your normal routine. Are you going to come back to your previous mistakes, patterns? Then of course you will be regaining. And my advice here is to give you some time to wriggle into this new regime. As with diet, very often we cannot just, from today I'm going on a diet and diet for several months perfectly. Normally, it takes a couple of weeks to get used to new rules, new patterns, new strategies. You may make some mistake, you may go fall off the wagon a couple of times before you learn yourself better, how you function on this new diet. What are the obstacles? And then you learn to work with these obstacles, and then you continue dieting. Many people do not give themselves room for these mistakes, for this time to settle into diet. Same thing with coming off the diet. We need to give ourselves time to settle with our new life, new weight, a new way of eating, because during diet we had certain external rules we followed. Now we need new rules. They will be more flexible, but there still will be rules, and probably you still need to set some boundaries, not to regain weight, right? But these boundaries will be now broader. So we need to build new structures, and we may want to learn some intuitive approaches. We may need to learn to connect to our bodies and eat when we're hungry and not eat when we're full. Stop before we empty our plate. Learn to listen to our body. When does it need energy? When our stomach is empty, when it's full. And if before overeating functioned as a form of self-soothing, for example, I get into a certain uncomfortable state and start craving food, and I know I've eaten 2 hours ago and I know it was enough. There was a lot of food. I'm sure I had enough of calories, and I feel that my stomach is not empty yet, but I want a piece of cake now. We need to focus not on the piece of cake at this moment. We need to turn attention inwards. What's going on? Because this is a state of activation of nervous system. This is not a state of wanting cake. This is a symptom, but root cause is inside. What's going on? What needs are not met at the moment? Am I tired? Am I bored? Do I feel bad about myself? What state am I in? Is there anything unpleasant? Is there any need unmet? Are there any emotions I cannot process, I cannot regulate? This is where psychotherapy is very useful, because very often we cannot tell what's going on. And the psychotherapist helps you to figure out what is going on and how to manage it without food. And sometimes food is good to manage it, but it should not be your only one coping strategy. With a psychotherapist, you will build a toolbox of soothing, self-soothing practices, mechanisms, and sometimes it requires changing a context of life. I cannot not mention that. Sometimes it involves a lot of work. If we are used to overload ourselves with tasks and not give ourselves time to rest, it takes some time to get used to a new paradigm of living. Oh, I need rest, I need recovery. I need to plan actually recovery first and then build my schedule around recovery time. Oh, wow, how can I afford that? But the truth is that it's all possible. If you want to stop overeating, you need to look at how your life is built and at your relationships with yourself and your boundaries. And I'm talking about relationships with ourselves because very often we overeat because of constant internal criticism, constant dissatisfaction with ourselves, constant pressure on ourselves. This is what can create that uncomfortable state when, where is the cake? Where is the cake? I'm not hungry, but I want cake. Very often that's because of our negative internal dialogue. And in therapy, we do not work with your childhood, your parents, and so on. Sometimes it's necessary, but more often than not, we're looking at your current patterns, see what is causing it, how you interpret situations, what you feel, what you think, and then I suggest hypotheses, solutions, and then you test these hypotheses and solutions. It doesn't mean we're going to dig deep into your subconscious or talk about your childhood for years. No. Modern psychotherapy has more effective solutions. And I would like to suggest you as a bonus 5 practical tips that may help you to reduce binging or relapsing after dieting. Again, there is no universal recipe for everyone, but hopefully some of these recommendations may help to make your life better and your relationships with food healthier. So first, learn to distinguish physical and emotional hunger. If you feel like after a meal, 1, 2, 3 hours after a good meal, you're craving sweets, most probably this is emotional. Unless you had some stressful event, for example, your boss yelled at you and your nervous system got activated, you got into fight or flight mode, your appetite decreased, your blood sugar elevated in order to give you energy for this situation of threat. But then the threat goes away, you calm down, and you feel like you need sugar. Then probably indeed it's better to give your body a bit of glucose. You may have a cookie, a candy, but not the whole box of chocolates, of course. To be honest, most people can tell physical and emotional hunger. Physical hunger is something you can never confuse with anything else. Physical hunger is your stomach is empty, you're low energy, maybe irritated. You feel it. It's so pronounced, physical hunger. Of course, there is list of characteristics of physical hunger and emotional hunger. I will not stop on it at the moment. I like more universal suggestion. Physical hunger, if you're not sure this hunger is physical, then this hunger is not physical. Okay, and then if I want food when I'm not physically hungry, this signals that I need to look inside. What's going on for me? What I can do for myself right now? What needs are not met? Next, if you are inclined to binging, to losing control, then most probably restrictions, strict rules do not work. Like, I will never have sugar again. I will never have ice cream again. It's better to allow yourself small treats regularly, small planned portion of desired food every day, but in a calm state. In a state of calm nervous system. This can be a good rule. If my nervous system is activated, if I feel like I'm on autopilot, then first I calm myself down and then I can have an ice cream when I feel good, when I feel in control. Next, find coping strategies other than food. How else you can relax? How else you can self-soothe? Can it be giving yourself downtime, resting time, just going to bed, taking a bath, going for a walk, maybe even switching your inner dialogue from harsh and critical to kind, warm, and more understanding and supportive. And food also can be a coping mechanism, but it's important that food is not the only one coping mechanism. Next, practice self-compassion instead of self-criticism. What does it mean? Self-compassion doesn't mean allowing yourself eating a box of chocolate every day. It means that when you make mistake, you do not beat yourself up, you help yourself get back on track and you explore with curiosity. What went wrong? How can I help myself? How can I place myself in better conditions in order next time not to have this extra ice cream? So next time, instead of I am weak because I ate cookies, tell yourself, what happened? I was tired. Instead of going to bed, I had a cookie. Next time, I will start going to bed, preparing to go to bed earlier before I'm not that exhausted. Or if I have to work overtime, finishing some project, next time I will plan my time better in order not to overload myself, because we often eat when we are exhausted. Notice that, especially like young moms of small children are very often exhausted and very often eat because of that, because they have no opportunity to rest. And finally, focus on long-term process. So do not look at your nutrition like today was good or today I was bad, tomorrow I will be good. Please stop using this terminology. First of all, food you eat does not make you good or bad. And also, there are shades of gray when it comes to food, when it comes to diet. Maybe today you had 50% of processed bad foods, but tomorrow you are getting back on track, eating healthily, in a balanced way, and then next 7 days you eat in a balanced way again, and then one day something went wrong, and for example, the day was stressful, you had probably too much sugar again. It's not about certain foods on certain days. Look at your diet in a scale of a year. How does it look in a scale of a year? Because very often we restrict ourselves very much. We eat so clean. We have 0 sugar for 2 weeks. And then one day we just binge on sugar. And then this happened to me when I had eating disorder. And then I thought, gosh, if everything I had just now, I could distribute evenly throughout previous 2 weeks, I could have something tasty every day and not suffer so much. Because diet is not about suffering, it's about finding your way to regulate yourself. And this requires kindness to yourself, giving yourself room to find your ways, to notice your obstacles to weight loss, to notice why you may overeat, why you may binge. And of course, do not blame diets and restrictions. It's scientifically proven that diets and restrictions do not cause binges or relapses. It's more about how we treat ourselves during diet and why we diet first place. That's it for today. It wasn't my goal to give you clear instructions how not to binge, because it's impossible to just cover everything in one video, and also it's not possible to help with universal advice, because as I said, everything is super individual. You are unique. But I hope I turned you into right direction where to search for answers. And I hope I inspired you to work with a psychotherapist. Please find below a link if you would like to work with me. And maybe join me on Instagram, where I share how I stay in shape from a point of self-compassion and how my diet and exercise routine is not perfect. See you soon.